Welcome to Weasel Gaming, and today we're going to be looking at tactics for our Unified Moon laser focused theme deck. And that, of course, is featuring Necrozma. This is an interesting deck. It's got an interesting play style. It's just kind of fun and unique. There is, of course, being Sun and Moon, there's 20 energy. Now, 18 of that is psychic energy. But there is 2 weakness guard energy. And those play a huge part in the power of this deck. So you need to find those 2 energy cards, and you need to preserve them for a very specific Pokemon. As always, we're going to look at our starters first, see who we want to be pulling at the start, putting out in that active spot early on to try to do something. And for that, we have Mesprit, who's a psychic type with 60 health. The 1 energy first contact ability is what we're looking at here. Search your deck for up to 3 basic Pokemon and put them on your bench. Then shuffle your deck. Also has a 20 damage Mumble for that same 1 energy. So once you do first contact, you get the Pokemon out on your bench that you want, and you can just start working on Mumble while you build up your stockpile. Another starter we have is Dedenne. Dedenne is a fairy type with 70 health. Has a 1 energy return that does 20 damage, and you may draw cards until you have 6 in your hand. Dedenne is great. I love this card as a starter for this deck. You put Dedenne out there, you're doing 20 damage attack, unlike Mesprit, where it's either you're filling your bench or you're doing damage. This allows you to refill your hand and do damage at the same time. Early on, hopefully you're drawing cards that you can play onto your bench, get some energy moving, start playing some supporters, and then return is going to make sure that you cycle through your cards really quick and you're getting back up to 6 every single time. So, very powerful starter also. And next up we have a Dino. Now Dino is colorless, has 90 health. Has a 2 energy attack, which is something I usually don't recommend for early starter Pokemon, but in this case it's okay. Reason is that Drain Slap does 30 damage, which is okay, but also heals 30 damage. Early on, if you're going against other basic Pokemon, that's big. You're going to heal any damage they do while doing damage to them. So a Dino can stay in there for a long time. The other neat part about a Dino is the ability Hearing. Once during your turn before your attack, if this Pokemon is your active Pokemon, you may draw a card. So having a Dino in the active spot is a free draw, which makes a Dino, again, a decent starter. So I would lead with Dedenne probably, Mesprit if I need more Pokemon. A Dino is not bad otherwise. But that's not it. This deck really has a lot of potential starters. We have Tauros, 110 health, colorless. Reason Tauros makes a good starter is Call for Family, which is a lot like Mesprit's first contact. You search your deck for a basic Pokemon, just 1, and put it onto your bench. Then shuffle your deck. So if you have none of the other starters, that's not a bad way to go. You can find a different basic Pokemon that you want to put out there. Now, for 1 more energy though, you get Berserker Tackle. If you're starting off with Tauros, second round you can start doing 60 damage. That's impressive, and that's intimidating to the enemy. The only downside is Berserker Tackle does do 10 damage to Tauros himself, but he can take a lot of those hits, even if he's taking 10, 20, 30 damage from enemy units. So, Tauros, very respectable starter for this deck. And then last but not least is you have Yungoos and Gumshoos. Now, Yungoos, not very impressive. 70 health, colorless type, 2 energy attack for 30 damage, not worth talking about. But if you have both Yungoos and Gumshoos, and you can get them evolved and start getting that energy on them, Gumshoos has 100 health, is colorless type, has a 2 energy alert headbutt that does 90 damage. 90 damage for 2 energy is pretty impressive. So if you have both Yungoos and Gumshoos in your hand, that's not a bad way to start, just because of the amount of damage that you can put out there fairly early for just 2 energy. You get that, you get going early, you might be able to really put a hurting on them before they can even put anything together. And they might just concede on you, if nothing else. So that's it for our starters. And I say that's it kind of ironically because that was a lot of options. There are a lot of great options for starters. Now, for defense, of course, we already talked about Adino. Adino has that hearing ability that gives you the draws, but also that Drain Slap, while doing 30 damage, heals 30 damage. So if you're going against weaker basic Pokemons or people that don't have huge attacks, Adino's not bad because you can really stick in there for a while. Inkay is another possible defense Pokemon, Psychic type with 60 health. Hypnosis is what you're looking at there. 1 energy, your opponent's active Pokemon is now asleep. This is a desperation only kind of thing. You only have 2 Inkays and you really want to evolve Inkay up. So I wouldn't want to use Inkay to put enemy units to sleep unless I'm desperate. But it's there. Last but not least for defense is Necrozma's Barrier Attack. 2 energy Barrier Attack does 30 damage and reduces incoming damage next round by 30. So a little bit of a mini shield there. Good against basics or Pokemon that only have a 30 damage or less attack. You're going to reduce that while you chip away at them. Also useful to finish someone off. If you weren't able to finish them off with your 100 damage attack, do this 30 damage and then you're preventing 30 damage from whatever they bring in. So nice little defensive capability that can help reduce a little bit of damage that you're going to take. Next up is our power hitters. And this is one area where the deck really doesn't shine. Silvally is one of your damage dealers. I say that kind of reluctantly. Not going to do a lot of damage, but not bad. Type Null, not very impressive. Basic, 100 health, colorless, has a 20 damage smash kick or a 30 damage to 60 potentially quick blow. So that 2 energy quick blow does 30 damage, flip a coin, you got a 50-50 chance of doing 60 damage. Not great. Evolving to Silvally though, a little more impressive. 130 health. You have the Avenging Heart. This attack does 50 more damage for each prize card your opponent took on the last turn. Chances are that's going to be at most 1, which brings this up to an 80 damage attack. Now, that's not very impressive. In the off chance that they were able to kill your active Pokemon and something from the bench, Avenging Heart could suddenly become way more powerful, doing 130 or even 180 or more. But that's unlikely to happen. Air Slash is a little bit better. 3 energy Air Slash does 120 damage, which is certainly respectable. You do have to discard an energy from this Pokemon to do that, though, which is kind of the downside, because there's actually a lot of Pokemon out there now that can do that 120 damage or more without having to throw energy away for round 3 energy anyways. So Silvally is kind of disappointing, but not bad. Your other damage dealer is going to be Necrozma. Necrozma is going to be the big heavy hitter for you. 130 health, Psychic type. We already talked about Barrier Attack, but we really need to talk about Special Laser here. Special Laser is a 3 energy attack for 100 damage. Plus, if this Pokemon has any special energy attached to it, the attack does 160 damage. So that's where this Weakness Guard energy comes into play. And that's why it's so important to hold that Weakness Guard energy specifically for Necrozma. Necrozma without Weakness Guard energy does 100 damage, max. That's not enough to really push forward and win a game. Necrozma with Weakness Guard energy does 160 damage. Plus Weakness Guard energy not only provides energy, but makes it so whatever Pokemon you attach to has no weakness. So that takes away Necrozma's weakness to Psychic types, which means he has no weakness and he's doing more damage. Now you got to be careful, he only has 130 health, so that's kind of on the low side. It's going to be easy to knock him out even without his weakness. But that's your big damage dealer for the deck. Next up is our utility cards, and this is an area where this deck really kind of shines, and that's due to Malamar. Inkay we've already talked about. Malamar is the evolved form, psychic type, 90 health. You're not going to be bringing this guy out to do attacks because it's a 3 energy attack of Psychic Sphere for 60 damage. That's a lot of energy for 60 damage. The reason this Pokemon is cool, though, is the ability, Psychic Recharge. Once during your turn, before your attack, you may attach a Psychic Energy card from your discard pile to one of your benched Pokemon. So when one of your Pokemon gets knocked out, then you can use Psychic Recharge to pull that energy back out of the discard and put it back onto some other Pokemon. Or when you're using Silvally and that Air Slash is discarding energy from your Pokemon, Malamar can be retrieving that energy from the discard and allowing you to put it back on there. So you're no longer losing that energy. That Psychic Recharge has another ability that we'll talk about a little bit later when we get to our support cards too. So Malamar is a big part of this deck. Having at least one Malamar on your bench is crucial. Having 2 is even better. It's going to make sure anybody that you have to use for attack is going to be powered up and ready to go. So next up, we're looking at our supports, and as always, we're going to start with our draws. Sun and Moon have a lot of draw cards. This deck is no different. Here we have How. You have 2 Hows in the deck. Draw 3 cards. You have 2 Bug Catchers in the deck. Draw 2 cards, flip a coin to see if you can draw 2 more. 50-50 chance of pulling 4. Not a bad draw card. Next up, we have Lily. Lily allows you to draw cards until you have 6 in your hand. If it's your first turn, you can draw until you have 8 cards in your hand. So Lily is a good way. You save her until you're down to just 1 or 2 cards. Lily allows you to fill that back up really easily. We also have 2 Cynthias. Cynthia allows you to shuffle your hand into your deck, then draw 6 more. So if you don't have the cards you need right now and you have some other cards that maybe you would find more useful later, or you just don't want to discard them to risk decking out, Cynthia allows you to cycle that hand out, get some new cards from your deck, hopefully something that works better for you. You also have 1 Tate and Lisa. Tate and Lisa has 2 different abilities. One of them is kind of a weak form of Cynthia, where you shuffle your hand into your deck, then draw 5 cards, so 1 less than Cynthia. Again, good way to cycle cards, but she does have another ability that we're going to be talking about here in just a second. That's it for our draws. Of course, besides Adino, who can draw from the active spot, and Dedenne, who can keep your hand at least 6 cards. So a lot of drawing ability, especially early on if you get those Pokemon in. Again, that was that Adino and Dedenne for their draws. Next up is pulling Pokemon. We have 2 Pokemon fan clubs, which can be used to pull basic Pokemon out of your deck. This is a great way to get your Necrozmas out there. Or if you have Malamar in your hand, it's a great way to get Inkay. Or if you have Silvally in your hand, it's a great way to get type Null so that you can start building up. Don't forget that some of your other interesting Pokemon are also basics. So Adino, for instance, has some neat ability. Dedenne, if you need to get Dedenne out there early on for draws. The other interesting card you have for pulling Pokemon is Mysterious Treasure. Mysterious Treasure allows you to discard a card from your hand, and if you do, search your deck for a Psychic or Dragon Pokemon, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck. Now, you don't have Dragon Pokemon, and so this can only be used on Psychic. That limits you to Mesprit, which I wouldn't use for. Necrozma, which isn't a bad option if you really need to get them. Inkay, if you're building towards a Malamar. Or what's even better is if You have Inkay on your bench. You play Mysterious Treasure, and you discard a Psychic Energy. You pull Malamar, evolve Inkay up, and then you can use Malamar's ability, Psychic Recharge, to pull that energy you just discarded back from the discard and place it on any Pokemon. So Mysterious Treasure in that situation actually allows you to play 2 energy onto Pokemon in one turn. So Mysterious Treasure isn't even discarding anything, it's allowing you to actually use that energy. So that's a really potent ability that allows you to quickly charge things up. Don't forget, for pulling Pokemon, you also early on could be using Mesprit or Taurus to pull Pokemon. Now, you have no support cards related to energy, but energy does play an important part of this deck. Remember, Silvally is going to be dumping energy through Air Slash. Malamar is going to be pulling energy back out of discard using Psychic Recharge. And then we have our control cards. So we have 1 Switch. We have 1 Tate and Lisa who can be used as a Switch. So don't forget that. But that's not all we have in this deck. We also have 2 U-turn boards. U-turn board is an interesting little item that you can attach to a Pokemon. The retreat cost of this Pokemon is reduced by 1. So you can reduce a 1 retreat cost to nothing or 2 retreat cost to 1. Gives you a little bit of flexibility to pull Pokemon back from the front line if you need to. A really interesting play that you can do, though, is with Adino. Remember, Adino's ability Hearing allows you once during your turn, if this Pokemon's in the active spot, you may draw a card. So if you have a Pokemon out there that gets knocked out, and you have an Adino on your bench with a U-turn board, you can put Adino out there. Adino's in the active spot, uses the draw ability, and then gets to retreat for free using the U-turn board back to your bench. It's even better if you happen to have 2 Adinos with 2 U-turn boards, because you can just cycle them in. So one starts there, does his draw, retreats out for the next one, who does his draw, retreats out for something else. So your Adino is a very powerful little combo with the U-turn board. Otherwise, U-turn board is just there to help you retreat if you need to. So with that, that's all of our cards, which means it's time to start looking at our stats. And that's where we kind of see the weaknesses of this deck. Our power is only at a 3. Sylvanny can hit okay. Necrozma can hit really hard, but only if he has certain energy. Giving it a power 3 is actually a little generous, because there really isn't anything else but that. Once if you can't get those Necrozmas up, or you're down, or you don't have that weakness guard energy, if you don't have Sylvannies or enough energy to keep them cycled and going, you don't have anything else to back it up on. All your other Pokemon, your Gumshoos, your Taurus, etc., don't do a lot of damage. Tauros is going to get one-shot by most decent enemies and isn't going to do any damage while he's out there, except against basics early on. So again, this deck has a lot of starters that are pretty impressive from the start, but really nothing mid and late game. So power sits at a 3. Speed is your ability to get those big heavy hitters going. And Necrozma, being your biggest, heaviest hitter, requires a very special energy to be able to do it. So the fact that you need that energy really makes it so Necrozma isn't very quick to get up and running. Malamar doesn't do a lot of damage. Gumshoes doesn't do a lot of damage. No one else other than Savani really does damage. And Savani's going to need 3 energy and is going to continually need 1 energy per round to keep going, which is going to limit your ability to do other things with your deck. So speed is really sitting at a 2. Agility is the ability to pull the Pokemon you need and get them moving. And this deck does okay. You have a lot of draws. You have some interesting ways to pull the exact Pokemon you want or need. You have some Pokemon that have the ability to pull Pokemon. A lot of drawing. So agility is sitting at a 3. You're probably going to be able to cycle through and get the cards you need when you want them. Efficiency for this deck, energy efficiency, is sitting at a 4. You don't really have any energy efficiency cards. Savani is spending some energy, but Malamar is going to be saving a lot of energy, and you're really going to be working hard to get that Malamar out there and start using that. There's no one else that really discards any energy, so it becomes a very efficient deck, and a lot of the Pokemon don't even need much energy to do any damage. Necrozma only needs 3. The other Pokemon you have only need 2 or maybe 3. So it's a very energy efficient deck. Complexity is fairly high. I mean, right down the middle, kind of. But most decks are fairly simple. You build up the Pokemon you want to do damage with, you stick them out there, you do damage. This deck, you got to be managing a lot of different abilities. You might be sliding Adinos into the active spot with your U-turn board. Malamar is going to be using his ability. Savani is going to be dumping energy. Necrozma really needs special energy. You're going to be balancing a lot of different things. And you don't have any one card that's really going to be able to really dominate for you. So complexity is sitting at a 3 because you do have to move things around a lot. Resilience is only at a 2. You really got nothing here. Your highest health Pokemon are sitting at 130, which is not really all that impressive. And you only have a couple of those anyways. There's no defensive Pokemon really to speak of. I mean, you got Adino that can heal itself for small amounts of damage, but can be knocked out easy. Inkay can do a little bit of defense. Necrozma's got a little bit of defense. But all in all, it's not a very resilient deck. So you're going to be losing a lot of Pokemon in this deck. So you really have to come out firing fast. Type advantage in this deck is sitting at a 2. Your deck is entirely colorless and psychic. Psychic is weak to psychic, colorless is weak to fighting. You have a couple other types in there, but nothing really to speak of. So your weaknesses are locked in. You're really not strong against a lot of things other than other psychic decks. And then you're also weak to those psychic decks. So you have a little bit of flexibility and that weakness guard energy to kind of help out, but you're not overly at an advantage or disadvantage here. Manipulation's sitting at a 0. You got nothing you can really do to them to manipulate their gameplay really at all. You're not going to be dumping into their energy or changing out their cards or anything like that. All in all, it's a very interesting deck. It's got a lot of strong starters, but its reliance on very particular combinations of cards drags it down a little bit. If you don't have all of the pieces in place, this deck really has nothing going for it. So if you're lucky and you have all the cards you need, you're going to come out swinging and you're going to do good damage from the start and you're going to do good damage mid to late game. If you don't have the cards you need, you're just going to get thumped. And there's nothing you're going to be able to do about it. So it's a very iffy deck. It's one that held up pretty good against other Sun and Moon decks, but really doesn't hold up too well in the Sword and Shield days. So with that, I hope you feel a little more comfortable about this deck, a little more knowledgeable about this deck. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.